On to Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta has proposed to cut the unpopular tax on petroleum products from 16% to 8%. Now, the president rejected a parliamentary finance bill that sought to postpone the tax altogether. Parliament will still sit next week to examine the president's new proposal, and here's CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwa reporting.
Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta is in a tight spot. He badly needs to raise revenue, but his preferred source, the taxpayer, feels pushed to the corner, so he's tried to ease the pain. He has tabled a proposal to reduce the contentious value-added tax on petroleum products from the current 16% to 8%.
Fellow Kenyans, I have spent the last few days listening to a wide cross-section of views. And it is clear that you are all troubled by the effects of the rise in the prices of petroleum products and its impact on the cost of living. I have heard and understand your concerns, which is why I have proposed, as part of my memorandum, to cut VAT on petroleum products by 50%.
It will still be painful, but according to the president, it will be worth it.
Today, millions of Kenyans travel on new roads built by this administration, and other roads are still under construction. Millions of homes have been connected to electricity, and our mothers now have access to safer and cheaper maternal care.
Some Kenyans welcomed the news, but others feel the impact would be negligible.
The
president has made a good decision. He has considered our plight and we are happy.
We were really suffering. This is a reprieve.
Although the fuel prices have come down, we still cannot afford many things. He also needs to address the rising prices of commodities.
The government has twice deferred the implementation of the tax following public outcry. However, it needs to raise revenue to fund its growing debt and its $30 billion budget. The tax is part of a government bid to finance key priorities while narrowing a fiscal deficit that could jeopardize a deal with the International Monetary Fund. But the president's proposal must still be approved by Parliament. Wilkista Nyabwa, CGTN.
Now, at the same time, the International Monetary Fund considers Kenya's external position to be strong. The fund says that it will continue to support reform efforts, even though a standby loan deal has expired. Now, Kenya had secured a 6-month extension in March for a $989.8 million arrangement. The IMF, however, set conditions for a further extension, including the repeal of a cap on commercial bank lending interest rates, which was imposed in 2016, and the widely unpopular tax on fuel. Now, what exactly happens next after President Uhuru rejected the amendments to that 2018 finance bill, of course, returning it to MPs with new proposals? Well, economic analyst Edward Kusewa now joins us in the studio to discuss this further. Very welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much.
Now, as you heard there in the president's speech, he referred to the financing gap that the government is currently facing. And of course, he talked about balancing short-term pain with long-term gains. Now, lawmakers, of course, they'll hold a special sitting next week to discuss this new proposals on the VAT. What exactly do you expect to happen next, especially with that VAT on fuel? Do you think lawmakers are going to take what the president is saying into account?
I think it will be a very heated debate as far as the Kenyan parliament is concerned. But so far, I think it's a reprieve for a lot of citizens, as just been able to reduce that tax, the tax by half from 16 to 8%. And definitely, if you look at fuel, for example, it is going, for example, petrol is going to reduce from 127 to, I think, 108, if I'm not wrong, and diesel from 115 to 118, and diesel from 115 15 to 107. But I think the oil marketers are happy. I think transporters are happy because there's a gain. I mean, we are still going to see the cost of living go up. So definitely it's going to be a strain on the common person.
Going forward. Now, of course, as you heard there, the IMF is still mulling over extending that precautionary loan facility. The Minister of Finance, Henry Rotich, he says they will not seek an extension to these precautionary loans. Critics say the move is injecting a huge measure of uncertainty into the economy going forward. Does Kenya need this facility? What are your thoughts on that?
I think Kenya, we still need a lot of, assistance from international, multilateral or bilateral organization. If you look at our budget, really, the budget really is divided into the recurrent and development expenditure. Our recurrent expenditure is about 75%. So that means 25% is left for development. And as you can see right now, if the total budget is divided within the recurrent expenditure, it means that there's very little money that is left for development expenditure. So that gap can only be filled by external borrowers coming in and helping us to build infrastructure projects and other projects that may be deemed, feasible for the country.
Well, let's go back to that finance bill. Now, MPs also rejected Treasury's proposal to repeal that rate cap. In fact, they chose to keep the upper limit while getting rid of the minimum deposit rate. Now, this comes despite the IMF sort of pushing for the government to make these changes. What are your thoughts on that rate cap and the decision they made?
The rate cap is good from an economic point of view, there's a lot of debate around it. But if you were to assess economies around the world, around 75 countries have implemented it. So the structure of the way that rate cap has been implemented may be in question, and therefore there may be a review of how it is being implemented. But actually scrapping out the interest rate cap really isn't going to do much. I mean, the commercial banks will still lend to the government moving forward. They'll still say that, rather it's better to lend to the government rather than lend to individual businesses because of that risk averseness. So I think in my view, it's good that we continue having that rate cap in place.
Now, Kenya's government, in terms of where it's going to get revenue going forward, it seems to be in a precarious position. We also saw lawmakers, they shot down proposals for Robin Hood tax, as well as taxes on mobile money transfers. Does the government have enough money to fund that recurrent expenditure going forward, pay its debts, as well as fund some of those development projects?
No, the Kenyan government is short of finances. I mean, that is true. And, they need new strategies. They need to look at how they can be able to either, not just increase the tax base as they are trying to do, but look for new revenue streams to increase finances. But otherwise, our country is short of money. It's not a secret anymore. Right. This is an open secret, and I think something needs to be done moving forward. Yeah.
And are you worried? Very quickly.
I mean, everybody should be worried. I mean,
right.
The cost of living well, the cost of living is going up, I mean, for the common person. And that's where the problem will be.
That's where the problem lies. Well, thank you so much for joining us in the studio, Mr. Kusewa. Of course, economist Edward Kusewa joining us in the studio today.